Sick and tired of your love-hate relationship with wine?
Welcome to the Feel It Alcohol Free podcast. Hi, I'm Coach Ruby Williams.
And I'm Coach Susan Larkin.
We're two former wine lovers turned alcohol freedom coaches, exposing the lies about alcohol
and giving you, our listeners, the tools to break free so you can feel lit.
And when you're lit, you'll feel healthier, freer, and more in control of your life.
So relax, kick back, and get ready to feel lit alcohol free.
And don't forget, grab a copy of our wine-free weekend guide after the show.
Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Feel Lit Alcohol Free podcast. We are so excited because we have a special guest with us today, the amazing Toni Will. And she is here to share all of her wisdom with us. And I'm just going to introduce her briefly. So Toni went through the This Naked Mind training with me, and so we've been friends ever since. And I'm so excited to have her here. She has 25 years of work experience in leadership and is the general manager and governor for the Kalamazoo Wings, a men's AA professional hockey team in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And Toni is the first female GM to serve on the board of governors in the ECHL. And in addition to her career in professional hockey, Toni launched her lifestyle coaching business, Mindfulness Elevated, in 2021. And she's an amazing coach. She helps others find freedom from substances and reach fitness and nutrition goals. And then in 2023, Toni expanded her business to include professional development coaching with Toni Will Coaching. She is passionate about helping emerging leaders and entrepreneurs break through their own glass ceilings. And in 2024, she launched her own podcast called Women In, that celebrates women in all walks of life and the people in their lives who are lifting them up and shaping them into the person they are today. And in the beginning, when we were just chatting, she's also going to be on a TED Talk. She's writing a book. Like, you cannot stop Toni Will. You cannot, it's just like, what is Toni? It's like, we should have a podcast about what's Toni doing this year, So,
welcome, Toni.
Yay.
Thank you, ladies. Oh, this is fun. I mean, not only are we friends, but it's just to see how far we've all come, since we've all met. It's just so cool. So
and come in our alcohol-free journey, right? All this started with becoming alcohol-free, right?
Absolutely. None of this would have been possible.
Removing one thing makes so many other things become possible. And I just love seeing that with my clients too. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm alcohol free and I'm getting a new job and I'm all of a sudden doing this and that. And it's just, and you're a prime example of that. And, amazing only female leader in the hockey league, professional hockey league. So how is that, though, being alcohol free? That must come with some unique challenges because sports is a very drinky culture.
Absolutely.
Very.
Yes.
So I've been in my role now for 10 years and I've been alcohol free as of last week, 4 years. And so for the first 6 years in this role, So for the first 6 years, I was doing this. I was doing it AF, but I called alcohol fueled and not alcohol free. So sports is very alcohol centric, and I sell. Part of my role as general manager is I sell sponsorships to alcohol companies wanting to advertise. And so here's the thing. It doesn't bother me in the least because I also sell sponsorships to sell hot dogs and I don't eat meat either. So it's not like there's any conflict there, cognitive dissonance. It's just, it is what it is. It's a business.
Yeah.
So I'm a minority in two ways, really. I'm a minority as a female general manager of a men's professional hockey team. And just a fun little stat that's in my TED Talk, which is 97% of professional hockey is white male. So I'm part of that 3%. And then in the drinking culture, and you ladies know this, and I'm on your podcast, which I do listen to, 13% of Americans are non-drinkers or abstain from drinking thereabout. So I'm a minority in two ways. And quite frankly, I celebrate that. I lean into that. It really feeds my rebel spirit. I've always been kind of unique and different in my personality. And so that really kind of lit a spark in me. And there's this Mark Twain quote that I really, and it's in my TED Talk too, which is like, if you find yourself in the majority, it's time to pause and reflect.
I love that quote. I've heard that before. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, it resonates.
To me, it sounds, I mean, like this gross oversimplification, like, I don't drink anymore. Yeah, I run a men's hockey team, but a lot of work a lot of work went into that. Not just physical work, but more work up here in my noggin. Thought work.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what's it like when you show up and people are a woman? That's weird. Or you don't drink. That's weird. Like, well, what is that like? Yeah.
Yeah,
How do
that's
you deal with
exactly
that?
what's happened over the years.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of prepared with how I answer it, depending on like the question I get is, how did you get that job? And
Yeah. That kind of is like,
it's because I'm a woman. It's like, well, and they'll
yeah.
say, did you play hockey? I go, no, I didn't. But I'm born and raised in Kalamazoo. I know how to run a business. And I'm passionate about community centric endeavors like the Kalamazoo Wings. And so I talk about that. And gender doesn't play a role. I think everything is figure outable, right? And it's just kind of how I've applied everything in my life. I may not know how to do it, but I'll figure it out. And the same holds true to being alcohol free. That one's a little easier because generally what I say is I cashed in on my drink tickets. And so like, using a little bit of humor, people
Yeah.
really resonate. And I got to tell you, there's so many people that are like, I wish I could do what you were doing, Toni, especially in the alcohol, in the world of alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. That's so great. That's so great. So now how do you handle and what are the support systems that you have for handling the stress of your job alcohol free? Because I know I used alcohol to deal with the stress in my job and then it worked until it didn't. And so like what are the support systems you found that are effective for you in maintaining your alcohol free lifestyle with everything you have going on, TED Talk,
Yeah, so I would say the first thing, there's two main things I would say. The first thing is I always put myself first. I do not suffer from feeling selfish about that. I actually feel self-full because I know if I come as the best version of myself, then the ripple effect is so positive. So I'm a better boss, I'm a better mom, I'm a better wife, I'm a better daughter, I'm a better in everything. So if I take my Toni time out, which is first thing in the morning, so what I call set the table for the day. So I get up 3 hours before I need to be in my office, which is where I'm at right now. And I get up, and this is exactly the order in which I do this. And I can go in any order, but
yeah.
my whole mission in life is to get my butt to the gym. I love Orange Theory. So I pack everything the night before. I pack all my food, I pack my clothes, I get ready at the gym. So as I'm driving to the gym, it's a 30-minute drive. I listen to 30 minutes of an audiobook or podcast because I read so much each year.
Yeah.
And then I do a meditation when I get to the gym in the car. Then I go work out for an hour. Then I shower, get ready. Then I go to the office and I eat a very healthy breakfast. And that really sets the stage for me for the entire day. So my day can go upside down, backwards. It could be great. It can be shitty. It can be anything. But I got that time in because I found that I respond and react much better when I've taken care of myself. So that's setting the table for the day. That's a big one.
Right.
And then the second one is as you ladies are, I'm very vocal about how proud I am to be alcohol free. And I don't wear it I wear it as a badge of honor. It's a strength. It's not a weakness. And so I'm vocal, which means other people can feel the same way. So because I believe it's a silver bullet, quite frankly, when I coach to that. And not if people don't want to tell, that's cool, but let's dig into why.
Yeah.
My head coach or our head coach for the K-Wings, he stopped drinking 3 months after I did. And our broadcaster and PR director, he stopped drinking 11 years ago. So I have a little tribe here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's just here. I've got season ticket holders. I've got people come up to me all the time and say, Toni, thanks for telling your story so openly. Because I struggle with that. And then I've got interns who are young and they listen to my TED Talk yesterday. I make them listen to it because I have to practice. And they were like, oh my gosh, that's so helpful to hear the word alcohol free. I never thought of it that way. Or that saying no is a positive and it's okay. No is a complete sentence and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. Oh
very
my
long
gosh.
answer, but that's how I do it.
Yeah. So it's a mindset shift, really. This is a positive, like you said, silver bullet. This changed my life in so many positive ways. Yeah, that's so good. Versus being anonymous.
Yeah, and owning your mornings, is really cool.
Fierce morning routine. I love
Yes,
that.
and
Yeah.
it's not every morning. So I just want to be clear. I'm not up at 6:15 on Sunday mornings. No, I sleep in a little. I am a morning person. And I read the book The 5 a.m. Club, and I'm not saying like you'll see it on social media and stuff like, oh, you have to get up at 5 a.m. No, I mean I go to bed at 10 and I get up at 6. Like I
So
try
you're
to get
not
8 hours.
getting up at 4 in the morning to do this 3 hour routine.
No, sleep is
Yeah.
very much a priority to me. Sleep is my
Yeah.
Achilles heel. If I don't get enough sleep, I make like my thoughts are different, my attitude's shitty. Like so sleep is really, really important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So what advice would you give people who are in this stage of life, juggling their career, but also because you have a family, you have children, and
Yeah.
yeah, 3 children. Yeah. How do you juggle that and all of these endeavors that you're doing? Because it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
So if you saw my calendar, it is color coded, and I have help. I want to be very clear. I have help. I have my assistant that at the K Wings, and she keeps me on top of things. But even before that, everything is very organized. It's all about efficiencies. I know exactly, when I'm driving from the arena back home or where I need to be for the kids. And the other thing too is I raised my kids to be very independent because I was working, and I wanted them to see that I was a working mom. And my husband picks up a lot. He works from home, and he's so supportive of all my endeavors. So it's a partnership at home, in the office, and so there's organization, but there's knowing when to ask for help. And yeah, I would just say that, and really articulating what my priorities are. Like I have it written down on a piece of paper, like what my priorities are. And if I'm out of alignment with that, I tell the people that are closest to me, tell me I'm out of alignment, be a mirror for me. And I want to be coached. I also have a coach. So there are ways to help me, because there are times I feel overwhelmed, or I think, what are you doing, Toni? Like, how much more can you put on your plate? As long as I'm hitting those certain check boxes, enough sleep, my things
morning
my
routine.
relationships are balanced, and I just go I go where my calendar tells me.
That's great. Yes. I have these panic moments where I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Where I check my calendar. Yes. Like, wait a minute. Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about when you made the decision to go from Toni Party Time, which you shared with me, to making the decision to stop drinking, because I know it's that decision of like, it's hard. It's hard for people to make. Yeah. And you've been
Yeah,
so open about it, but I'm
it
sure there
was.
was that moment of, okay, I'm really going to do this.
Yeah, it was really hard. And it wasn't just one moment. I had like thousands of
Okay.
day ones,
Yeah.
like I'm going to quit, like a lot of us. So I had one big one in 2016. I stopped drinking for 15 months through AA. And I really liked the culture, not the culture, the community of AA, the stories. I loved it. But it started to like, I started to have thoughts that it felt kind of culty. I didn't like step one, you're powerless. I do not
Me
subscribe to
too.
that at all. It was a 100-year-old framework, and I desired something more modern. But I did 15 months, and then I decided I thought I could moderate again, and I went out and had 3 years worth of data points, and and really a data point of learning I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then in October of 2020, that was the year, obviously, of the pandemic. And in Michigan, hockey was like everything was locked down. So while I was still working, it was remote. I used that extra time to just start to focus in on what I really wanted to tackle. And so I put myself on a 30-day Toni timeout from drinking. And that I was like, I'm just sick of this. I'm sick of me. And so in the first couple weeks were really hard emotionally. Like I was sitting at the island talking to Josh, my husband, and saying, how can I be so successful in all these other areas of my life, but I can't get my arms wrapped around this? And so I Googled other methodologies to stop drinking besides AA, and This Naked Mind popped up. So I bought both books. I bought This Naked Mind, the Live Alcohol Experiment. 2 weeks later, I signed up for the November 2020 Live Alcohol Experiment. 2 months after that, I signed up to be a coach. And a year later, in November of 2021, I was coaching in that same alcohol experiment that I took a year earlier.
So cool. I love that your journey, your trajectory is so cool. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And I
was
have the
hard
same
though.
feelings. I had the same, I mean, what you just described is exactly AA,
Me too.
years and years of moderating, then coming to the end of myself and the same thoughts. How can I be successful in so many areas of my life and I can't get this together? And it's because it's an addictive substance, right? And you can't tackle it. I say, with all the moxie, the grit, everything that we put into our careers and all the areas that we're successful in doesn't work to quit drinking. It's surrender, it's self compassion. It's such what non-intuitive process. Like it doesn't make sense, but it works, right?
Yeah, and it takes as much time as it takes. I think that sometimes the people that are super successful almost it takes longer in a way because they're like, well, I've watched every video and I've done every single homework assignment and I've journaled every single day. I've done it. Why am I still drinking? So it's not about getting an A+ in college or something. It's different.
Right.
It's totally different. It's about really leaning into maybe the discomfort or fear that you might have around social situations or just being by yourself or leaning into the boredom. I used to drink because I was bored. I mean, yeah.
There's just so much shame in it. And, like alcohol use disorder, at least that's what I was diagnosed with. And, I just decided like, I'm not going to be ashamed of this anymore because what was hard about all that journey, and I talk about this very openly with my clients. This isn't, for me, it wasn't a light switch. I didn't say, oh, I don't like my drinking and just flip the switch. It wasn't spontaneous sobriety. It was a lot of thought work. And it was more around a lot of work that there's nothing wrong with me because I got addicted to addictive substance and that's where I struggled with AA because it felt like that in order for me to be, and I don't subscribe to this label of alcoholic, but to fit that I had to be like, I was the child of,
Yeah.
drinking
Right.
parents. Like it felt like I was actually created in a vacuum because that's not what I was brought up in. And so I was like, how did this happen to me? And so by pulling away from that and really struggling for 3 more years and then finding other methodologies that explained what the heck was going on in my brain, then the light bulb went off. But it still didn't make it easy because to Ruby's point, it's like doing reps in every little pocket of my life. Being at a hockey game, after a
Yep.
hockey game, when we'd normally go across the street and drink at the bar, traveling. I mean, I travel all over the country. And, so flying on an airplane, sitting in
The
my house on
airport.
a Tuesday night.
Yeah, I know.
We call them
every day that
first.
ends in Y.
Yeah, we call them firsts, and that's why I think a year or many months of a program is really beneficial working with a coach for 3 months, 6 months, a year. I mean, a year is really the sweet spot because then you get all those like your first Thanksgiving, your first Christmas, your first birthday, the first time you go to a hockey game. But then it's not only one time, it's like you kind of have to explore it multiple ways, like you just described.
Yeah.
Because I hear that often with clients are like, but I had a first time at a restaurant and I was fine. But then the second time I went to a restaurant, it's like, well, who were you with? What kind of a restaurant? So it really is interesting.
Yeah.
What time of year is it?
Yep.
What was the vibe? It's different if you go at lunch versus if you go at dinner and there's a fireplace and the sun is setting. Like, you go to the grocery store and you hear a certain song on the radio and you happen to be walking by the alcohol aisle and then all of a sudden
You're right.
You need to do rep after rep after rep after rep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where
It
maybe
is. It's like building
you
those
said you were-
alcohol-free muscles.
Yeah, and you said you were like an
Yeah.
Ironman. Can you tell me? I'm really curious about that. Tell me a little bit about that background because that's reps, right? Like
That was a lot of reps. You're absolutely right. I in my late 20s, I decided so I was like a group fitness instructor in my 20s, and so I taught like Les Mills programs, if anyone's heard of those. And then I was always into fitness and nutrition. I had lost like 50 pounds after I had my son Landon, and I taught myself how to do it. And then so in my late 20s, I decided, well, I want to do something harder. Shocker, my personality. So I set out to like run a marathon in 2009. So I ran the Detroit Marathon, and then I'm like, ooh, triathlon sounds interesting. So I dove into that sport. Shocker, something harder. And I worked my way up. There's four different distance triathlons. There's sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, and full Ironman. So over the course of about 5 or 6 years, I worked my way up to training for a full Ironman. And so I've done two. I've done two full Ironmans, five half Ironmans, and like 60 other shorter distance
Wow.
races. And so a full Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, and then you go right into a 112-mile bike, and then you go right into a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. And so you
Can't even
cover
imagine.
141.6 miles in my first Ironman was in Louisville, Kentucky in 2014, and I did it in 13 hours and 56 minutes.
My
And then
gosh.
my second Ironman was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and that one took me 15 hours and 20 minutes. And that was when I was 39, that last one. And when I crossed the finish line, I'd been racing for about 11 years, and I decided that that chapter of my life, I got out of it what I was supposed to, and I have not done a triathlon since 2017.
Okay.
My
My big
gosh,
question
wow.
though is, were you drinking during these, and did you
Yeah.
train drinking? Because one of our recent episodes we talk about, how detrimental it actually is for your health when you are training and then drinking. So what was
Yes.
that like?
So my first Ironman in 2018, oh yeah, I mean that I was drinking. That was my reward. Work hard, play hard, and I laugh so hard now at the ridiculousness of that belief that I had. And if anyone has that belief, please don't think I'm minimizing it because I had it.
I
But
had
it's
it
like,
too. Yeah.
why was I was busting my ass for a year prepping for this thing, working out up to 17 hours a week, and then I'd undo all of it by drinking, but I didn't know. I just didn't
Right.
know,
You just
Right.
right?
didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
Yeah.
celebrate with a beer, you celebrate with a glass of wine or whatever. You're right.
Yeah. But the second Ironman, I was alcohol free. What I find hilarious, though, is that the first one, I was much faster than the second one, but it's not because of the alcohol. It was actually Chattanooga's just really, really hilly. So that just makes it hard.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. My gosh. You know what? We've been friends and talked, and I've been on your podcast, but I didn't know some parts of your story. And so I'm just so
Love this.
glad to have you on and I didn't realize how much I related, to your story, even though I haven't done an Ironman. I did do a half marathon in 2006, and then my hip had like bursitis afterwards, so that was the end of that for me. But and training for that though was I was still
No.
drinking at that
Yeah.
time myself, and it's the science that's what's missing. Like, I love the community of AA also, but the science, and I didn't ascribe to the powerlessness or that I have a disease. And I also felt like, what's wrong with me, and how did I end up like this, and and so, yeah, but just finding out the science that you are normal, that your brain is actually doing the normal thing when you do become dependent on an addictive substance, especially when you're using it as a coping mechanism for stress, and that's what I was doing. And, or if it's just in your life in so many areas, like every day that ends in Y. Yeah, yeah, and then how much undoing of that is, right? Like you said, it's it's celebratory, but it's also sitting on the couch with Netflix. It's when you're sad, happy, if it's associated with every single emotion, you're going to have to go through all those reps. Like you said, I love using that
I love the root word reps too.
term,
Yeah.
reps, yeah, and really undo the beliefs that you have that alcohol is of value. And as you undo those beliefs, that's how you become completely free.
100%. And I know, Ruby, you said a year, and I agree with that. And I'm going to add one more year onto it because for me, what I have found is the first year, absolutely, it's the first of all those.
Yeah.
It's this, I have found that it was the second year for me because it was almost harder because I had done the first, like a little bit of adrenaline I had pumping to, because that's just my kind of personality. Like, I look at something as a challenge and I'm like, ooh,
Yes.
fun, I'm going to tackle this. So it was that second year where it wasn't I'd done all the reps, year one
Yeah.
reps.
Yeah.
So really it was year two where I really started to feel the freedom. Now, if the path where we all have coached 2 years long, people would be like, running away. I probably would never put a 2-year program on, because remember when we were just
Yeah.
considering this life, and if someone like me said, hey, 2 years from now, you got this, I'd be like, that is so far
What?
away.
I know,
Yeah.
but it goes fast, and I mean, people dip their toe in. Maybe, we have a freebie that's called try a wine free weekend, like, or an alcohol free weekend, like try a weekend free. Then people like try the 30-day, right? Like the dry January or sober October. And then when you get to about 30 days, you go, wow, this feels amazing. But then you have that mind, like Susan was saying. So I also agree that it is longer. It's actually a lifestyle for the rest of my life, and I'm going to learn for the rest of my life. But for me, the second year was about therapy, digging into trauma, figuring out my emotions, repairing relationships. Like that was kind of my whole second year was around that, which then, yeah, give me freedom, like you said, Toni. Yeah, that's where freedom comes from.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the adrenaline of that first. Yeah. The next year is like, oh, this is just my life.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Okay, now what do I want to do with this though? And that's where building a life that you don't want to escape from starts to come into play. Where I love, like, you have your Toni time in the morning, like that pillar of, I need this time in the morning to set myself up for success. And I have an evening routine, morning routine, evening routine, knowing and honing the tool. So not just sitting there with, like, I was telling Ruby this morning, I was having some anxiety about some family stuff going on. It's like, okay, I have tools that I know I can do when I have anxiety in my body. And what are my thoughts? Okay, what am I thinking? What can I do to relieve some of it? Because sometimes you change your thinking, or you start to, oh yeah, that's not true, da da da. But you still have the anxiety in your body. And I'm like, okay, I know what to do there. I do a little yoga, or I do some breathing exercises. You start to hone those tools.
100%. And we were talking off air, and this might be a good time to bring it up, but as I've been
Yes.
prepping for this TED Talk, I have it's been one of the most challenging spaces I've stepped into. And because I'm a little naive, but I've had to really tap into those tools during this and really ask for help for my mindset, because it's harder. And I love to public speak. I thrive in it, but TED is a whole different beast.
Is it? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So this will have aired by the time we air this episode. What is the date that your TED Talk is airing?
So I step on the stage a week from today on October 25th. And so it should be released out on the TED website around the end of December is what I'm told.
Okay,
So
awesome. Okay, well, we'll put a link in the show notes so
Okay.
everybody can see your TED Talk, because I'm so excited for you. So what are some of the main tools that you're using, that you use to navigate
Great question.
like manage the stress or
Yeah.
the doubt. So number one is talking about it. So I can't emphasize that enough. I don't think people think about that as a tool, but it really is taking whatever is going on up here in my head and saying it out loud to someone that I trust and really knows when I'm in like a tough space. And so I talk about it. I said, I'm trying to find words for how I'm feeling about this. And sometimes I have a hard time finding the words. I feel a little overwhelmed. I feel I'm doubting myself a little bit. And I'm overthinking. And those three things are areas that I generally don't do. And so I generally walk in and say, oh, I'm going to talk, and I don't overthink it. And I write 3 little bullet points on a Post-it note, and I'm off and running. And I don't doubt any of that. But this is not how TED works. And so it's stretching me in a way and then it's the turnaround stuff, right? Like, okay, Toni, this is like an Ironman. You prep, it's hard. And then you want to peak at the on race day. So I want to peak on delivery day.
Yeah.
And when it's over, it is something that you will be proud of your entire life. And so it's that mindset of knowing you're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And then you're going to do it, and you're going to be beyond happy that you set this goal and accomplished it. So there's that mindset part of really thinking of, turning it around and having a willingness to consider that it's worth it.
Yes. And a willingness to be uncomfortable. I say that to my clients all the time. Any goal worth achieving is not going to be easy and is going to cause discomfort. even achieving an alcohol-free lifestyle, right, or quitting drinking is going to create some discomfort. That is, you have to have a willingness to be
To
uncomfortable,
step outside of your comfort zone.
to reach your goals, but it's worth it. It'll be something you're, like you said, you'll be proud of for the rest of your life. I love that. Wow.
Percent. I mean, I have it like I have my Ironman tattoos here. They're just little, but and it's kind of like a tradition in the community, and they get giant ones. But that's not my style, and so I have these little ones. And no matter if I was however old I was in my 30s when I did this, or when I'm 100 years old, because that's my goal to live to 100. These are still going to mean something even when I'm wrinkly. And so the same thing for the TED Talk, right? Like I'm going to tell a story, two stories that I've already shared on here, basically being a female general manager of a men's professional hockey team, and then being alcohol free and being a minority in both those spaces, and how that's a strength and not a weakness. So, and really for women specifically, and I'm sure you ladies see this and have felt this, and I know I've been through it too, but I see a lot of women make themselves small.
Yeah.
And I want to be like, get those peacock feathers out, ladies. Like, let's let them
Yes.
soar and play big. And so by getting on a stage and talking about this, I would have never thought in a million years I would be doing that, especially about the thing I was most ashamed of with alcohol. So I'm going to be really proud of that for a lifetime. And regardless of what comes from it, because I don't do these things to grow my business or anything like that. I do it because I want to help the next generation. I
Yes.
want my kids' generation to have less barriers, less shame,
Yes.
less of the shit that we've been through.
Yeah.
You are talking my
absolutely.
language.
I know,
Yeah.
you're hot,
I love
girl,
it.
hot.
I
Woo.
love it.
Get me on that stage.
I love it. Yeah, I cannot wait.
I am so proud of you, Tony.
I
I just want
me
you to know that.
too. I want to be you.
I know.
I do that. I feel myself starts to shrink down. And I have to breathe into it and go, okay, no, it's a learned behavior, and they learn it. We learn it in school. Sit down, be quiet, do your homework and show up, and everything will be fine. Go to college, be the good girl, don't speak up, don't make waves. I'm combating that, every day, probably.
Yeah. And I mean, and I know Susan, just because we were together in our cohort, and Susan and I were the ones that, it was funny. We were both like, we both got our certifications at the same time. And we both had an eye on each other in the best way possible. And that's the thing about, like, and Ruby was the class ahead of us, but
Yeah.
that's why I love to lift other women up, is because I want you all to be as successful as humanly possible. And so that's what Born Women In, my podcast, and you both have been on, because I want women to support each other. And I have men on my podcast too, because men came from women, and it's a collaboration.
Did.
But I want you to be that badass version of yourself, and Ruby's
badass.
badass version of herself, and
Yeah.
celebrate this. We're not competing with each other. We're not like, get on that TEDx stage. I'll be more than happy to cheer anyone on. So, and that's what a lot of this work has done too. Like, I live a life of abundance now, not scarcity.
Me
That's
too.
amazing.
It's
That
been a
is
mindset
amazing.
shift. It's taken years, and I have to work at it still. Like a scarcity will creep in, and then you do some
Yeah.
more mindset work around it.
Yeah. And I've been experiencing that. That's some of the anxiety is, quitting my day job, and now not just, but now coaching full time. Part of me in the back of my mind is like, did you lose your mind?
I'm in such awe of that, by the way. Like, literally, I want you to know that. And I know that's one of Ruby's favorite words, because she was on my podcast. I was listening to it today. But I'm in awe of that, because that is so courageous. And I'm not ready. I don't have a willingness right now. And you did it. And walking away from Yale, I think that's so awesome.
Just got this plaque in the mail that for this very tiny plaque. I'm like, gee, Yale, like pull out all the stops. This tiny one that says, celebrating 20 years in 2024. And I was just like, oh, okay. But you know what? It was the right decision for me. It was something I needed to do. It wasn't my passion. And you have a passion for what you're doing right now. And
Right. That's
so
the
I have
difference.
I needed to open space up in my life to be able to pursue this passion that I felt was, put on my heart. And it's the same as you, to educate, to lift up the next generation, to, be out
Beautiful.
there with the fact that alcohol is an addictive substance. How do we not learn this in the world, And we were talking, and also, like, I saw in our community, they're doing a happy hour to fundraise for the DARE program. Shoot me. I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, a happy hour to fundraise for the DARE program. They don't teach that alcohol is a drug or an addictive substance and is actually more addictive than tobacco.
Yeah, I almost want to send a note to that person and say,
I know.
Who is chairing this?
You could,
and
Susan.
kindly say, can I talk to you?
Yeah. Can we have a conversation? I have some education that we could add to the DARE program that I'd be happy to teach. Yeah. So we're at the time of our episode where we ask our guests, what do you do to feel lit, Toni? So we all, inquiring minds, want to know.
Yeah.
Right now, I would say really for me it's setting goals and accomplishing them, and one of the things I want to point out with this is and not accomplishing them. So I haven't told this story in a podcast before, but the first Ironman I set out to do, I was 7 weeks away from accomplishing that race, and I broke my shoulder blade in a bike accident, and so I had to pull out.
Yeah,
and it felt like a failure. And so I was like, no, I'm doing it again. So just like drinking, right? Like I didn't get it right every time. I took that 3-year break, and that made it even better. So I just say that it's accomplishing goals and setting goals and finally accomplishing them, even if I don't get it right the first time.
Yeah. Love that.
Love
that's
that.
so great. Yeah, because that's
Never
where the
give up.
self-compassion comes in. Yeah. Learn and move forward. Learn and move forward. That's where we talk about data points. You have a data point, you fall down. We talk about this being a marathon, not a sprint. You took a little side trip off to get some Gatorade. Now you're back on the road, and you keep moving forward. Yeah. Yeah. And you learn from it. It's like, oh, took a wrong turn and I went the wrong street. Okay. Now I'm back on track. Yeah. And that's what it's about. Never quitting.
Never.
And that's you, Toni, never quitting, doing amazing things. You are a force.
Thank you.
Force. And yeah, I admire you so much. And that's what's so amazing. I don't have envy. I just love you and admire you. And just, I'm like,
too.
yeah, go, Toni, go. I'm like your cheering section. And so excited to hear your TED Talk and to see what you are going to do next.
Yeah,
Toni.
that book is next
I know.
November 25. So I'll hit you ladies back up so you can have me back on.
Yeah, we would
will.
love to.
So,
All right.
Well, where can our listeners find you and listen to your podcast?
Yes.
So I'm on, there's lots of places you can find me, but ToniWillCoaching.com, MindfulnessElevated.com, KalamazooWings.com, and then I'm on all social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Toni Lentini Will, Instagram, I'm Toni Will, and then my podcast is called Women In. Don't forget those dots, and I leave the dots there on purpose because it's an opportunity for all of us, whoever's on the podcast, to figure out what we are in, right?
Yeah, I love that. And we'll put all these links in the show notes so you can just click a link and find Toni. And thank you so much for being here. This was so delightful.
Thank you so much, Toni.
I'm so inspired.
I love it. I love it. You guys are fabulous. So thanks for being amazing. And I'm so proud of the work you all are doing.
Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Feel Lit Alcohol Free Podcast. Do you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show?
All you need to do is head over to Apple Podcasts and do 2 simple things. Leave a rating and review telling us what you think of the show. And in that review, ask us any questions you have about breaking free from wine or living an alcohol-free lifestyle.
That's it. Then tune in to hear your question answered live. Don't forget to grab your copy of A Wine-Free Weekend at www.feelitpodcasts.com.
And remember, do something today that will help you feel lit.
See you next time.